Before we dive into a story that'll hit you right in the gut, please hit that subscribe button and join our community of dreamers and doers. It's free, and you'll get a front row seat to life-changing stories every week. Now, let me take you back to a moment that shattered everything I thought I knew about myself. I wish someone had warned me how one choice could spiral into a life I barely recognized. This is a lesson from Chicken Soup for the Soul that flipped my world upside down, and trust me, you'll never forget it either. It was 2019, and I was 27, staring at my phone screen for the 10th hour that day, scrolling through endless feeds that made me feel smaller with every swipe. My apartment was a mess, dishes piled high, laundry spilling over, and my dreams buried under a haze of notifications. Chicken Soup for the Soul has a story called The Power of Letting Go, and there's this line that gut-punched me: sometimes holding on does more damage than letting go. I read that and froze. It was like the book was screaming at me to wake up. I'd been holding on to my phone, my habits, my excuses, and it was ruining me. That quote wasn't just words. It was a mirror showing me how I'd let my life slip through my fingers. Back then, I was a graphic designer, or at least that's what I told people. In reality, I was a zombie, glued to my phone, chasing likes and validation while my portfolio gathered dust. I'd spend hours watching Instagram stories of people living lives I envied, traveling, creating, thriving, while I was stuck in a cycle of comparison and self-doubt. My friends stopped inviting me out because I'd either flake or show up distracted, refreshing my feeds mid-conversation. One night, my best friend Sarah snapped. "You're not even here anymore," she said, her voice trembling. "It's like you're addicted to that thing." I laughed it off, but deep down, I knew she was right. I was addicted, not to drugs or alcohol, but to the dopamine hit of every ping, every meaningless scroll. The turning point came when I missed a deadline for a client I really admired. It was a small gig, but it could have led to something bigger. I'd promised a logo design by Friday, but I spent Thursday night binge-watching YouTube drama and scrolling X. When the client emailed me, furious, I felt this wave of shame. I wasn't just letting them down, I was letting myself down. That's when I grabbed Chicken Soup for the Soul off my shelf, desperate for something to pull me out of the hole I'd dug. The story about letting go hit me hard because it wasn't about losing something. It was about choosing what matters. I realized I was choosing my phone over my dreams, my relationships, my mental health. I started tracking my screen time, and the numbers were horrifying: 12 hours a day on average. That's half my life gone. I wasn't creating art, building connections, or even sleeping properly. My eyes were bloodshot, my anxiety was through the roof, and I felt like a failure. The book quoted another gem: "You don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step." That was Martin Luther King Jr., but Chicken Soup wove it into a story about a woman who rebuilt her life by starting small. I decided to try. I deleted X and Instagram from my phone for 1 week, just 7 days. Sounds easy, right? It was torture. My hands itched to check my notifications. I felt isolated, like the world was moving on without me. But by day 4, something shifted. I noticed the way sunlight hit my coffee mug in the morning. I started sketching again, ideas flowing like they hadn't in years. I called Sarah and we talked for an hour. No distractions, just us. That week wasn't perfect, but it was the first time I felt alive in months. I wasn't just a slave to my phone anymore. I was starting to see what I'd been missing: real conversations, creative sparks, moments of quiet that didn't feel empty. Chicken Soup for the Soul didn't just give me a story, it gave me a wake-up call. It showed me that the things we hold on to can become anchors, dragging us down. My phone wasn't the villain, but my obsession with it was. I'd been living in a fog, and that book was the first crack of light breaking through. That week of detoxing from my phone wasn't a fairy tale ending. It was just the start of a brutal climb. I'd tasted freedom, but the pull of old habits was like gravity, yanking me back every chance it got. Chicken Soup for the Soul had another line that stuck with me: "Change is not a one-time event, it's a series of choices." That hit deep because I realized breaking free from my screen addiction wasn't about one bold move. It was about showing up every day, fighting the urge to slip back into numbness. I'd already lost so much: friendships, opportunities, my own confidence. But I wasn't about to lose myself again. So I built a plan, a real one, with steps I could actually follow. Here's how I clawed my way out of the digital trap, and how you can too. Step 1 was admitting I needed guardrails. I couldn't trust my willpower alone. It was too weak against the siren call of notifications. So, I downloaded an app called Freedom to Block Social Media During Work Hours. I set it to lock me out of X, Instagram, and YouTube from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The first day, I must have reached for my phone 100 times, only to see that blank screen. It felt like losing a limb, but it forced me to focus. I started sketching designs again, and by the end of the week, I'd finished a project I'd been procrastinating on for months. That small win lit a fire in me. If you're drowning in screen time, get an app like Freedom or Forest. Set strict hours. You'll hate it at first, but that's the point. Discomfort means you're growing. Step 2 was about reclaiming my space. I noticed I'd grab my phone first thing in the morning, still half asleep, scrolling before I even brushed my teeth. It set a toxic tone for the day. So I made a rule: no phone in the bedroom. I bought a cheap alarm clock, $10 on Amazon, and left my phone charging in the kitchen overnight. The first few nights were rough. I'd lie awake, itching to check X. But eventually, I started reading physical books before bed. I tore through Atomic Habits in a week, something I hadn't done since college. That one change, keeping my phone out of reach, gave me back my mornings and nights. Try it. Move your charger across the room, or better yet, to another room. It's a small tweak with massive impact. Step 3 was filling the void. Cutting screen time left me with hours I didn't know how to use. Chicken Soup for the Soul had a story about a guy who replaced bad habits with good ones, and he said something like, "You don't quit something, you replace it." I decided to replace scrolling with creating. I set a goal to sketch one design a day, even if it sucked. Some days I'd spend 20 minutes doodling nonsense, but others, I'd lose myself in a logo or illustration for hours. I also started jogging, not because I loved it, but because it got me out of the house, away from screens. By month 2, I was running 5K 3 times a week, and my head felt clearer than it had in years. Find something you love, or at least tolerate, and pour your energy into it. A hobby, a side hustle, even cooking. Just make it analog. Step 4 was tracking progress, but not obsessively. I used a simple notebook to jot down my daily screen time and what I did instead. One week, I went from 12 hours to 6. Another, I slipped back to 8. But seeing the numbers trend down kept me motivated. I also wrote down wins, like finishing a client project or having a real conversation with Sarah without checking my phone. Those notes became proof I was changing. You can use an app like Rescue Time to track automatically, but a pen and paper work just as well. The key is to measure, not to stress. Progress isn't a straight line. The benefits started piling up, and they were staggering. In 6 months, I cut my screen time to under 3 hours a day. I read 15 books that year, landed 2 freelance gigs worth $6,000, and rebuilt my friendship with Sarah. My anxiety, which used to choke me every morning, became a dull hum instead of a roar. I wasn't perfect. Some days I'd relapse and scroll for hours, but I wasn't the zombie I used to be. Chicken Soup for the Soul taught me that transformation isn't about being flawless. It's about choosing better, over and over. The book's stories showed me people who'd hit rock bottom and climbed out, not by luck, but by action. I was doing the same, one step at a time. The fog I'd been living in for years was finally lifting, and for the first time, I could see a version of myself I actually liked. Chicken Soup for the Soul had one more lesson that sealed the deal for me. The greatest risk is not taking one. That quote, tucked in a story about a woman who left a toxic job to chase her dreams, made me realize that staying stuck in my screen addiction wasn't just comfortable. It was dangerous. I'd already started breaking free, cutting my screen time, rediscovering my creativity, and rebuilding my life. But change like this doesn't stick unless you commit to it. Fully, no excuses. I'm not here to preach perfection. I still slip up sometimes, but I'm begging you to take the first step. Your life is waiting, and it's worth fighting for. If you're sitting there, phone in hand, feeling like you're wasting your days, don't wait for a rock-bottom moment like I did. Start now. Pick one thing from my story. Maybe it's downloading an app to block distractions. Maybe it's leaving your phone out of the bedroom, or maybe it's sketching, running, or calling a friend you've ghosted. Just do something. Chicken Soup for the Soul showed me that the smallest actions can snowball into massive change. That woman in the book? She didn't just quit her job. She started with one phone call to a mentor. One call. That's all it took to shift her life. What's your one call? What's the tiny move you can make today to take back control? Here's my challenge to you. Try a 24-hour phone detox this weekend. No social media, no mindless scrolling. Use that time to do something real. Paint, cook, walk, talk to someone you love. Then come back here and tell me in the comments what you did and how it felt. I read every single one, and I want to hear your story. If you're ready to keep going, hit that subscribe button right now. This channel is all about real stories, real lessons, and real change. Join us, and let's keep pushing each other to live better, not just scroll better. Let's talk numbers for a second because they don't lie. I went from 12 hours a day on my phone to under 3. That's 9 hours a day I got back, 63 hours a week, over 3,000 hours a year. That's time I used to read 20 books, land $8,000 in freelance work, and run a half marathon. What could you do with 3,000 hours? Maybe you'd write that novel, start that business, or just feel like yourself again. The crazy thing is, I'm not special. I'm just a guy who got sick of wasting his life and did something about it. Chicken Soup for the Soul didn't give me a magic fix. It gave me stories of people who chose to act. Now it's your turn. What's stopping you? And don't say nothing, because we both know that's not true. Drop it in the comments. What's the one thing holding you back? Let's face it together. This isn't about being perfect. Some days I still catch myself scrolling too long, but I don't beat myself up. I just get back to the plan. Block the apps, move the phone, create something. The difference now is I know what's possible. I know what it feels like to live instead of just exist. That lesson, sparked by a single story in a book, changed everything. So, I'll ask you one last time. What's your first step? Don't overthink it. Don't wait for tomorrow. Grab a notebook, set a timer, make a choice. And if you want more stories like this to keep you going, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one. Now, tell me, how many hours are you spending on your phone each day? Drop it in the comments, be honest, and let's start this journey together.